After all these 3D printing tests of noodles, spaghetti, tripods, wet noodles, I think that the Cura slicer layer height may be different than the Prusa slicer layer height. I'm not sure if the G code is identical if either of the slicers move the nozzle upwards from layer to layer, because it seems that the Prusa slicer was able to kind of make the noodles move while printing on top of each layer rather than Cura. And I think that's why the Prusa 3D prints came a little worse than the Cura. But that's quite different, and it requires other investigations in the future. On this channel, I speak mostly about 3D printers and their particular specifications, features, or lack thereof. Sometimes I may throw a wrench in the system with a review about my computer setup and or car fixing video. If you think you can stomach this type of format, throw me a like or a subscribe. Thank you. It started because I designed this like temperature and speed tower, and I designed it for the Prusa slicer, and I've been using the Prusa 2.1 slicer for some time now, but Cura 4.3 came out, and it all started with this guy right here, this little one, which can't stand up on his own. So I designed this to have lattices that look a little bit organic, so it gives your 3D printing head some time to travel. And I wanted to see what are the effects when you do not have like straight 45 angle inclinations in those general 3D printing tests. And I printed this. I fired up Cura 4.3. Let's look it up there. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Curas installed. And right there, lo and behold, it's the wet noodle. I was surprised when it printed, and it printed quite well on the 2.3 Sapphire. I didn't know where this is gonna go. I just printed it. I was like, oh, this looks nice. Okay, so let me make more, because while this was 3D printing, the head didn't have to travel anywhere but upwards, and it looked too smooth. Now let me see if I can focus this thing. Focus. Okay, maybe, I don't know. Let's try that. No. It can't focus like that. So let me try this. So it seems very smooth, and I didn't try to break it. Let's try to break it now. And I printed at 210 degrees. All of them are printed at 210 degrees, and it's quite sturdy. And I wanted to test the temperature and the smoothness of the outer wall. So I sliced it at 0.2 millimeter layer height, and that was that. That's all she wrote. And then I decided, okay, let me put a few of them together and, you know, slice them in Cura, and it came up as this. And this one came okay-ish as well, but where the worms are joining, it dropped the ball. The 3D printer or the slicer, I don't know which one it is. So I was like, oh my god, this seems like a pretty good quality. And I bet you the Prusa slicer is going to come up with some amazing results. And lo and behold, I think this was the first one. And how do I know this was the first one? Was because if you look at the brims, they're smaller. And I had the layer height the same. I had the speeds the same, but what I did have differently, this was actually Z hopping while is moving the head from one leg to another. It can be something is wrong in my settings, and I decided to print it in Cura. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the Cura one, the Cura 4.3. I've been bashing Cura for a long time, well, for about 8 months, I would say. And there are some features in Cura that I like, but I would never got good results with Cura. So I printed this and I was like, this is not possible. There's something wrong with my settings. And I adjusted the settings, and I think this is actually not, it's one of them, but it has no wipe. And as you can see, the stringing is more pronounced in both of these in Prusa slicer. However, in Cura, these all three of them are in Cura. And eventually, I kind of printed one in Prusa, one in Cura, one in Prusa, one in Cura, because every time I had to do adjustments. Eventually, I ended up with this, which is, let me see, Prusa 2.1, 50% wipe. I don't have any wipe in Cura, and I wasn't sure why this is happening. And I gotta say, I'm back to Cura. Like after this test, I'm back to Cura, and all the Cura ones. Okay, this is Cura 4.3, no Z-hop. So when you do no Z-hop, apparently it prints way better than with Z-hop, because I had the setting set at 1mm lift or Z-hop, but it wasn't checked. And then I couldn't believe that I was getting such good results. And then I decided to look over the settings again, and this was the last one that I printed, and it still came out much better than all the other ones. And this white hatchbox PLA, I always had excessive trouble with stringing. Apparently, Cura does a better job these days. I don't know how they did it. I mean, they did incorporate the Creason plugin in it, but it seems to be doing a mighty better job than Prusa Slicer. And I guess I'm back to Cura. 3D printing, happy accidents, I would say. And also in Prusa, look further down the line, look no further than here. Some of them failed, and they failed because these had smaller brims and they would not stick properly to the bed, and they just moved under the nozzle, so eventually they failed or they got unglued. So I re-glued the bed, and still, these are the other results in Prusa Slicer. Okay, and this is one of the worst ones. These are the Cura results. And this is the last one, because I added the Z-hop. And I guess if you do not have support, maybe you can change the Z-hop. But yeah, apparently Cura prints better now than Prusa Slicer.